Good afternoon and welcome to Mar Gregorius College of Law webinar series organized by Center for Constitutional Studies as a part of Ambedkar Jayanti. Mar Gregorius College of Law is an acclaimed law college located at Marimanis Vidyanagar, affiliated to the University of Kerala, approved by UGC. MTCL webinar Constitutionalism, Vision of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar will be taken by a Professor K.C. Vice Chancellor of Advanced I also welcome our teachers, students, and all spectators for this beautiful event. I request all the participants to mute their audio and video.
Thank you, Sneha, and good afternoon, all. As you all know, the nation is celebrating the 130th birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution, the first law minister of independent India, a social reformer, and a person with great vision for the modern India. To grace this occasion, we have with us Professor Dr. K.C. Sunny, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of National University of Advanced Legal Studies. Being a great academician by profession, his dedication is beyond words. He was instrumental in establishing Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Chair in Kerala University, which, among other things, tries to disseminate the ideas and thoughts of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, particularly in constitutional law, human rights, and social justice. In spite of his busy schedule, Dr. Sunny sir has readily agreed to share his thoughts on B.R. Ambedkar with us. On behalf of the Center for Constitutional Studies, Mar Gregorius College of Law, I cordially welcome you, sir, to this session. Welcome, sir. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. John P.C., our beloved principal, to this session. Welcome, sir. Though he has been there with us from the very conceptualization of this webinar, I would like to welcome Dr. Father Kaushi Isaac Punamutil, our Honorable Director, to this session for the sake of formality. Welcome, sir. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Vikraman Nair, sir, Chair Professor Dr. N.R. Madhav Menon, Chair on Legal Education, our Vice Principals, Professor Dr. Thomas Utti, sir, Professor Ramachandran Nair, sir, our Head of the Department, Dr. Jijimon, sir, senior faculty members, colleagues, and our students to this session. Welcome all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hereby request our eminent dignitary, Professor Dr. K.C. Sunny sir, to take the session on transformative constitutionalism, vision of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
Respected manager, very Reverend Father Kochi, Principal Dr. P.C. John, other faculty members, Senior Professor Dr. Vikraman Nair sir, dear students. Is it audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Apaya, is it
Thank you.
audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the outset, I must congratulate Mar Gregorius College of Law for organizing this webinar on transformative constitutionalism, the vision of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. In this Ambedkar Jayanti Day. As all of us are well aware, the contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to the Indian society is very substantial. He was a philosopher, he was a scholar, he was a jurist, he was a social reformer, and he was a man of innovative ideas. In the making of our constitution, the contribution made by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is very substantial. If we go through the Constitutional Assembly debates, Constituent Assembly debates, we can see that almost all aspects of Constitution the B.R. Ambedkar intervened in the debate of the Constituent Assembly, and he cleared the doubts and apprehensions raised by various sections raised by the members of the assembly who are representing the cross section of India. Dr. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution. So it is natural that after the debate related to each aspect, there may be a reply given by the chairman of the drafting committee to justify the position taken by the drafting committee. The Constituent Assembly, there were great persons like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Rajendra Prasad, Alladi Krishnasamy Iyer, K.M. Munshi, Dr. John Mathai, and most of them were well-trained barristers barristers who got the opportunity to have their legal education in UK during the glorious days of British Empire. So they were persons having profound knowledge and practical experience. Another section of the members were actively involved in the freedom struggle. However, the task of taking the committee was so when we vision of Dr. Ambedkar is also very important because the vision of Ambedkar is reflected in various provisions of the Constitution. Our topic for discussion is transformative constitutionalism. What is the meaning of this transformative constitutionalism? Simply speaking, the transformative constitutionalism considers Constitution as a vehicle for social transformation. I think most of the participants are either teachers of constitutional law or students of constitutional law. There are two approaches to study the constitution of a country. First approach is to study constitution as a basic documents determining the structure and functions of different organs of the government, namely executive, judiciary, and legislature, their relationship with each other, and the remedies available to the citizens if their rights are infringed by the operation of different organs of the government. That is one approach to study constitution. That is, constitution is the document dealing with the the rules of the game of running the government. But running the government is not a game like volleyball, football, or cricket, because aspirations of crores of people are involved in the matter of taking various decisions in connection with the governance of the country. So definitely there may be a different approach to study the constitution. That approach is to treat constitution as a document containing certain values. Constitution as a document containing certain values. These two concepts in relation to approach a constitution is founded on two concepts related to the role of the state or functions of the state. That is the concept of role of the state, role of a police state, and role of a welfare state. In a police state, role of the government is confined to protect the citizens from external aggression and internal disturbance. But in a welfare state, there are multifarious functions to be performed by the state. As mentioned by W. Friedman, firstly, state is a protector, that is to protect the citizens from external aggression and internal disturbance. Secondly, state is a service provider to establish education institutions, to establish institutions for health care. So, state has a role as a service provider. Thirdly, state is an industrial manager. Indian Railways, biggest industry in India, that is managed by the state. Air India, that is managed by the state. Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, managed by the state. So state is an industrial manager. Then state is the dispenser of social services. There are so many pension schemes. Now during this COVID period, pandemic, government is providing kits containing essential things for the purpose of feeding the human beings. So there is a role of the state, that is role as the dispenser of social services. Finally, state is an arbitrator for the resolution of dispute. The point is that in a welfare state, there are multifarious functions to be performed by the state. For the purpose of performance of all these functions, certain policies are essential. Policies are essential, and that policies may be related to some ideology. Both in policies and ideologies, a value component is there. So, when we are addressing constitution as a document containing certain values, this is a document containing certain values for the governance of the country. Document containing basic policy choices to be adopted by those who are in power. So, when we are addressing this issue, that is, to what extent social transformation is visualized by the Constitution of India, we have to consider this aspect, that is, Indian Constitution is a document containing certain values. What containing certain values? These values are reflected in the preamble of the Constitution. In part 3 of the Constitution, that is directive principles of state policy, And sorry, part 3, that is part 3, that is fundamental rights. Then part 3, the directive principles of state policies. Then coming to the issue of the social transformation, according to Ubendra Bashi, transformation means a series of breaks with the old forms of society, state and culture. So there may be change in the society and culture. And then some new things may be introduced. According to another political thinker, Clare, transformative constitutionalism is the long-term project of constitutional enactment, interpretation, and enforcement committed to transforming a country, committed to transforming a country's political, social, institutional, and power relationship in a democratic, participatory, and egalitarian direction. When addressing this issue, we have to consider the nature of the society existed at the time of enactment of the Constitution. The Constitution was enacted in 1949 and the constitutional system of governance was established in January 26, 1950. During that period, that is in early 1950s, a caste-based closed hierarchical society was in existence. That society was existed or had been in existence for centuries in India. The society was caste-based because caste was the sole criteria to determine social status and prestige. It was closed. The interaction between members of different caste groups was very, very limited. So it was a closed society. It was a hierarchical society. The status in the society is determined on the basis of the hierarchy established under the caste system. Brahmins in the top, next Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas, Shudras, Avarnas, etc., etc. That was the position. The position of the caste group, which was placed in the lower strata of the society, was worse than that of the animals and snakes. That was the position. Through a social revolution or social transformation, the Constitution intends to create an egalitarian society having equal status and opportunity to all sections of the society. The horrible nature of the caste system is reflected in an incident happened in 1911. In 1911, in the elsewhere Travancore, that is the area of Kerala with the districts Ernakulam, Kottayam, Koilon, Alapi, and Thiruvananthapuram. Then Kanyakumari district of the Tamil Nadu and Shangota Taluk of Tamil Nadu. In that area, there were only 3 persons having motor vehicle. One is Maharaja of Travancore, then another rich person from Koilon. The third person was Alim Mutil Chana. That is in the Nangyar Kodangara area. This Alim Mutil Meda and other things are there. Even today, this big Meda or big building or big palace is there. Unfortunately, this Alim Mutil Chandan belonged to a backward community. So, for proceeding to Thiruvananthapuram, Chandan had to pass through the Krishnasamy temple of Mavelikara. At that time, the backward community members were not permitted to use the road in front of this Krishnaswamy temple. The driver of Chandan was a person belonging to forward community. So when Chandan coming in front of this Krishnaswamy Krishnaswamy temple, he may use another way for the purpose of crossing this temple. That way was this Aitavadi. That is this the way meant for this so-called rounds, so-called Avarna, so-called backwards and Avarnas. But the driver can go with his car through the front road of this temple. That was the position. That was the position in 1911. So the constitution intends to abolish this caste-based closed hierarchical society and to create an egalitarian society having equal status and opportunity to all sections of the society. When we are discussing this the transformative constitutionalism, you have to read two books written by same author, that is Granville Austin. First book is Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. That was written in 1952. Second book was written by same author 50 years later, that is 2002. That is this Working of a Democratic Constitution, Indian History. In the first book, there is an observation by Granville Austin, which was quoted by our Supreme Court in several cases, including Kesavananda Bharati and Minerva Mills. That is, Indian Constitution is a document for social revolution. And according to George Austin, I will quote, Indian Constitution is first and foremost a social document. Majority of its portions are either directly aimed at furthering the goals of social revolution or attempt to foster this revolution by establishing conditions necessary for this achievement. Despite the formation of entire constitution by aim of national renaissance, the core commitment to social revolution lies in part 3 and part 4, that is fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Then the author continues, the fundamental rights and directive principles had their roots in deep struggle for independence. And they were included in the constitution in the hope and expectation that one day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India. So that is the aim. One day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India. So the nature of revolution or transformation intended by primates of our constitution is to abolish the caste-based closed hierarchical society existed in India for centuries and to create an egalitarian society having equal status and opportunity to all sections of the society. For that purpose, a twofold strategy is adopted. First is to include basic rights as fundamental rights, fundamental freedoms as enforceable fundamental rights. Secondly, to incorporate basic policy choices as directive principles of state policy. For this purpose, the contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is very, very substantial. That is my point. According to eminent constitutional expert K.C. Ware, the name of the book is Modern Constitution. A constitution of a pre-democratic state organize and control power, ensure human rights. So ensuring of human rights, that is the aim of a basic aim of a constitution. Balance the competing claims of social and individual interest. So balancing of interest, that is also very important. Mirror the culture and experience of the country and operate as a vehicle for national progress and unity. If we go through the provisions of the Constitution, especially Part 3 and Part 4 of the Constitution, we can see that this aim is fully realized in the Constitution of India. And if we go through the Constitutional Assembly debates, we can see that for this purpose, the contribution made by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is very, very substantial. Then, if we go through the writings of the Constitution, sorry, writing of B.R. Ambedkar, we can see a terminology used by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, that is social endosmosis. Social endosmosis. According to B.R. Ambedkar, social endosmosis should happen. What is social endosmosis? Interaction between different sections of the society, irrespective of his status, irrespective of his educational qualification, etc., etc. So, constitution should be designed in such a way as to ensure social endosmosis. That was the approach taken by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and he was well aware of the nature of the Indian society. That is why he observed that this observation is very, very important. Democracy in India is only top dressing. Now we can see top dressing in big residential buildings. Democracy in India is only a top dressing on the Indian soil, which is essentially undemocratic. So Indian society is basically undemocratic. That aspect was well known to Dr. Ambedkar, and he prepared social revolution through constitutional means. The maintenance of democracy requires that. This is observation. The maintenance is it okay? Audible?
Sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
it's okay, bro.
So, for achieving social transformation to constitutional means, there are certain strategies visualized by the constitution, as I mentioned earlier. Firstly, to confer basic rights of all persons as fundamental rights. Second, to incorporate directive principles of state policy. Actually, directive principles are only policy choices. And there is one important observation by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar regarding the significance of this directive principles of state policy. Oh, wow. So, anyway, I noted that quotation. Anyway, the various methods are, first one, abolition of caste system. There are definite provisions in this regard. Second one, agrarian reform. Third one, protective discrimination. This reservation policy and all these things are related to protective discrimination. Government regulation of industry. Then planned social change through 5-year plans. Population control. Democratic decentralization. That is Panchayat Raj institutions and other things. Then empowerment of weaker sections of the society. Empowerment of weaker sections of the society. All these things are the strategies adopted for social transformation through constitutional system of government. The last point is, to what extent we achieve the status of the social transformation or social revolution. There comes the significance of the observation of this Granville-Austin in his second book, that is Working as a Democratic Constitution, 50 years experience in India. According to Granville-Austin, only ground is set for social revolution. Revolution is not achieved, but ground is set for social revolution. So, it is a duty of law students, lawyers, and law teachers to facilitate the process of social revolution. Let us take a pledge that we must facilitate, we must work hard for facilitating social revolution. With these remarks, I am concluding. There may be some questions. That is why I am stopping here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, is the session over of yours?
If any of the students or teachers want to ask any questions or clarifications, I am ready. Otherwise, you can mind.
Okay. If anyone have any doubts and queries, you can ask that right now.
Sir, I have a question for you, or rather, you can clarify my doubt. I'm Father Joseph.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, what you said is correct, and I was listening to you, your talk, and the ultimate aim of the Constitution was to in a sense, to eradicate this caste system and also to form an egalitarian society. But because of this, some of the remarks and also some of the judgments which came from the Supreme Court, for example, in Indira Sani, etc., caste, the predominance of caste is very much highlighted in such judgments. How can we move forward, given the situation that the caste is reinforced time and again in Indian society because of some of the Supreme Court judgments and also because of the democratic developments, these party politics, etc., that caste hierarchy and caste system is reinforced instead of being alleviated. What is your
Okay. Actually, repeat the question because that was not audible to me. Otherwise, somebody may repeat it because.
Am I audible?
There is some intervention, that is why. Interruption, sorry.
Am I audible now?
Okay, it is audible.
Yes, sir. I shall repeat the question. See, the aim of the Constitution is to create an egalitarian society, free of caste, etc. But because of some of the Supreme Court judgments, to say specifically Indira Sani, etc., there are some comments. For example, the Indira Sani case has taken.
Now I cannot. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. The
What is
reinforcement
the
of
judgment of the Supreme Court?
see, the caste is the criterion for determining backwardness. Caste has been set as a predominant criteria for determining reservation, etc., for determining backwardness. Then, and also because of this political system in India, the democracy as it is progressing in India, the reinforcement of caste is taking place. Then how can we move forward given the situation? Even after 70 years, the constitutional aim is not achieved. How can we move forward? What is the way out?
Okay. 1 minute I have. Okay. Actually, this is a very complicated issue. But we cannot blame judiciary alone for perpetuating this caste system. There are so many social and political reasons. One reason is the emergence of this vote bank concept. Actually, the term vote bank, that is first used by M.N. Srinivasan, an eminent sociologist in the Indian context. So, some of the political parties, or almost all political parties, are interested in creating an vote bank or vote banks in favor of them. So, they may adopt certain strategies like making institution as a sensitive issue. Originally, in the Constitution, this reservation for scheduled castes in the Legislative Assembly were intended for 10 years. After 10 years, Constitution was amended, then extended to another 20 years, etc., etc. It is expected that an egalitarian society may be established within 10 years. But what is the real position? Even today, in certain areas, the chairmanship of Panchayat Raj institutions are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. But they may not be permitted to assume the office. That position is existing even today. Actually, what is needed is the emergence of a constitutional culture. Basically, stated that for the effective working of a constitutional system of governance, development of a constitutional culture is essential. Unfortunately, that culture is not yet emerged, and nobody is interested in developing this constitutional culture because earlier in schools there was one subject, civics. Now nobody is interested in teaching civics at school levels. That is the Indian position. So what is needed is to make people aware of the importance of constitutional system of governance and to accept constitutional values. That is the
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. If anyone else is having any doubts, they can ask that right now. And you can clear your doubts. It seems like no one is having any doubts. No one is responding. Okay, now we are moving on to the end of this meeting. Thank you, sir, for this beautiful webinar. Now I invite Haira from Tensum BA LLB for the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all. Honored to have been asked to deliver the vote of thanks for this relevant session on a relevant topic that is transport constitutionalism, organized by the Center for Constitutional Studies of the Margaret College of Law. So, on behalf of the college and the entire management team, I express our heartfelt gratitude to our honorable and respected chief guest, Dr. K.C. Sannisa, Vice Chancellor, UWS Ernakulam, who gave his valuable time and from his busy schedule, even from a short notice, he had accepted to come in this particular webinar on transformational constitutionalism. And he has graced his esteemed presence by sharing his thoughtful words and ideas, and his words had indeed made or provided food for thought to the everyday and development nature of a living constitution. Thank you, sir. I would like to place my heart of thanks to the director of a college, Father Kosh, and the principal of a college, Dr. John PC, for their leading inspiration and the guidance for every time in the organization of this webinar, and for the establishment of the Center for Constitutional Studies, Margaret College of Law. This opportunity to thank the vice principals of a college, that is Dr. Thomas sir and Ramachandran sir, and HOD, Jijimon sir, and Dr. Kiman sir also, the valuable guidance in the establishment of the Center for Constitutional Studies, Margaret College of Law. Also, I'd like to thank Abhya ma'am for the warm welcome address, and also I mention my sincere thanks for the honest effort to identify Aishwarya ma'am for the establishment of this Center for Constitutional Studies and organizing this webinar on transformating constitutionalism. Also, I'd like to place my thanks to Vinla sir for all the technical efforts to make this webinar accomplished without any flaws and technical glitches. Also, I thank all the faculty members and the non-teaching staff for their sincere cooperation. Further, a big thanks to Ms. Sneha for her energy and lively comparing. Thank you, Sneha. Also, I take this opportunity to thank the entire committee of the Center for Constitutional Studies, the volunteers and technical staff for whom this webinar was made possible. Also, I must remark a provision amount of gratitude to all the participants, that is the audience, who made this webinar a successful completion. And again, once again, I thank on behalf of my college and the Center for Constitutional Studies from the bottom of my heart to Dr. K.C. Sannisa for your valuable time and your valuable words. Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Haira. Now our meeting comes to an end. So thank you again. Thanks again for everyone for being wonderful spectators.